Welcome to the Fishing for a Reason podcast. It's great to be back with you guys on this Tuesday morning. We have an incredible couple of guests with us today. I'm really excited to interview Jake Lint and Hayden Terrell with LFS in Bellingham, Washington. So super pumped to get their insights on what's been going on at the tackle shop, what we can expect for the season, how Lingcod fishing is going, how shrimping is going. We have so much to freaking cover. You have no idea. But we're just going to dive right into it. I'm Jamie.
And I'm Scott.
And today I'm going to start with you, Jake. What is your background as an angler?
Yeah.
Give me a little history, because you turn this hobby that we all know and love into a job, and it takes a special person to want to do that. So tell me more.
Right. Yeah. So, hi, my name is Jake. I've lived in Washington State for about 25 years now, and I've just always fished from when I was a little kid. And then at about 16, 17, I was like, well, how can I make money off of this? And so I actually went straight to commercial fishing. I went up to Bristol Bay and I did one season in Southeast seining, and then I did a few seasons in Bristol Bay, and it was great. I loved the community and like the hard work and getting out and doing the cool things, but I wanted something I can be, a little bit more raw and real. And so I started opening up the idea of guiding. And that's when I applied for a job on the Kenai Peninsula, and I started guiding that year. And it's just been a nonstop addiction. Now with, family coming, I have a kid coming on the way. And so LFS is the perfect place for me to stay local, to raise my family and still be part of the fishing community and really see it like kind of grow as a community. It's been pretty neat to do that here in my hometown.
I love that. And congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, we're pretty excited.
So exciting. But I would love to know, so when you started commercial fishing, I think that's such an interesting jump. How did you even find that gig? How'd you go from idea to execution?
So we're pretty lucky here in Bellingham. We have a pretty big port, and there's a ton of commercial fishermen that call this home base. I was working in restaurants as a kid, and I was fishing before work and fishing after work here at our local Whatcom Creek. Yeah, I just started beating the docks, asking these guys, "Hey, you want a greenhorn? Like I'll do your gopher work for you." I actually got on a boat, got up there, and then the captain and the boat owner had a disagreement, so I was stuck in King Salmon, Alaska without a boat. And so I just jumped on the next boat I could, and then it kind of went from there.
How would you describe the vibe of your current crew?
Yeah, so our current crew, I take a lot of pride in our crew and what we have to offer here at LFS. We got Hayden. He's our local salt fishing. He's been out in the San Juan since he was in diapers. And so that kid has very unlimited information and knowledge. We have another guy who is a fly fishing expert. He's super nerdy about fish. He knows every single little fact about them, and he's super meticulous, and I love his attention to detail. We just sent one of our guys back up north for his guiding season on the Kenai Peninsula, and he was a really good one. Just fishing knowledge, just knows how to get fish into the boat and food in the freezer. And, between the four of us, we had 100 years of fishing experience, which is pretty impressive, I feel. And, we all kind of pitch a little bit of crap towards one another. We kind of push each other's buttons in the healthy, like kind of fun way. And then, these are all really nice people that I work with. And I'm grateful to have the opportunity to work with these guys, and that we can all, we all go fishing sometimes, and like, we always have a blast, and then we can come back and bring to the customer what we're using out there and then see that reflect. And so I think it's great that these, we have customers come in and be like, I talked with Hayden last week about lingcod fishing out here. It went great, and then I feel very confident in the information that my guys are giving out. So, yeah.
That's awesome. And it's so nice to have that well-rounded experience too. I mean, you guys have so many different things on the shelf, but then to have the actual experts, it's not always the case when you walk into a tackle store that you can count on the advice that you're getting.
Right.
So it's really awesome that you guys have built this team of essential experts from not just one fishery too. It seems like your background is all over the place, and taking all those different things that you learn from different fisheries and plugging them in your local waters is a game changer. So I love that. And Hayden, can you give me a little bit of your background as a fisherman?
So grew up here in Bellingham, born and raised. My grandparents, they built a cabin over on Lummi, so I spent every summer out there growing up. We have a 17-foot whaler that my brother and I would take care of and fuel up, and it's been a great experience growing up out there as well as in town here and having all the rivers and the bay is right here, the rivers are here. There's just a lot to do. We have BC just around the corner. I mean, if you just run an extra 45 minutes, you can be to Vancouver Island, like my brother was the other day. We just spent the entire week of Memorial Day weekend out there. I was out there from Wednesday till yesterday, and we were doing some lingcod fishing, some shrimping. They ran up to Constance Bank and they went out and caught their two salmon and two halibut out there. So they had a pretty successful trip. It was flat calm. They 120-mile round trip in our 17-foot whaler. So it's pretty cool.
Nice.
But yeah, I just started here at LFS in December. I'll be heading up to Bristol here in a couple of weeks. Yeah, this will be year 8 for me. And I love it. It's a lot of fun. Commercial fishing's cool. Kind of what Jake was saying earlier is just how do I make money off fishing? And you get a lot of guys that go up there, it's like, oh, it's work. It's like, yeah, but I'm going fishing and I'm working and I'm catching a lot of fish. It's really cool. It's a very select fishery. So if you don't have escapement to the rivers, you don't get a fish. And if there is escapement, you get a fish for a long time or a short time. So I really find that fun. You're listening to the radio announcements every day, and sometimes you go at midnight till noon, or you go from 8 a.m. to noon or something like that. But it's a lot of fun. I find it's a great summer job. I don't love the heat as much anymore because I spent all my summers up there. And right now it's perfect temperatures here, but in about a couple weeks it'll be too hot for me. So yeah.
Have you fished with the same boat for all 8 years that you've been going up there, or have you switched?
I have been on the same boat for 7 years. They were a family friend of ours, and they wanted me at 15, but the insurance wouldn't cover me at 15, so I went at 16 and been going ever since then. So I wasn't planning on going back this year, but I'm on a different boat this year, which is going to be cool because he's a Lummi neighbor, just lives up the way. And so I got the two kids their job on that boat, and then I got a job myself on that boat this year. So it should be fun, and I'm looking forward to the season. Price looks good, so.
Cool. How long are you usually up there for when you go up?
So this will be my shortest trip. Usually it's about 7, sometimes 2 months, 7 weeks to 2 months. So 8 weeks, I guess. Just because we have a lot of projects going on the boat before we had to launch, and then we didn't leave till like August 2nd or 3rd, but it also gave us some good sport fishing opportunities, like doing the Naknek trout, which is a world-class fishery, and every single rainbow you're catching is the size of a small steelhead or the size of a summer steelhead. It's pretty
Yeah.
cool.
So
Yeah.
They're eating all the fry coming out of the lake right there at the beginning of the year, and they look like tuna. I mean, if you go up there and you see it once, it's the coolest thing because they're coming up and they're jumping out of the water, busting at bait. It's really cool.
Cool. Well, I think we want to talk about Washington State now. You guys talked
Yeah.
about Alaska a little bit. How has the shrimping up north been this year for you guys?
So we went out. I picked a new spot this year. It's not really a new spot. It's a couple miles away from my old spot, but it was good. We averaged about 70 a pull, so we had 4 people in there, so it took us about 2 pulls to get done. We went out Wednesday and Thursday. It was pretty good. Yeah, it was
What
enjoyable.
kind of gear are you using for your shrimp pots and stuff?
So this year, I just bought two of those Octagon pots, the 30 inchers,
Yeah.
and I've been fishing Ladners my whole life. I will always
Hmm.
back a Ladner pot. I think that for the price they are and what they are in the little 17-foot whaler, you could stack 4 of them super easy and go. The Octagon pots did not outfish my Ladner pots. I will say the
Huh.
Ladner pots
Wow.
outfished the Octagon pots. I was shocked. I was absolutely shocked. Now, could it have been if I set them 20 feet this way or that way, they would have outfished? Who knows? But, the 8 times we pulled them up, or I guess it would be 4 times we pulled each one. Not one time did they outfish the Ladners. So we fished two
Huh.
and two. So
Are they what's the height on those? Are they 12 or 18 inches?
I think they're 12,
They're
12
12.
inches.
12.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the
Yeah.
Ladners are a little higher, maybe.
Yeah.
I, you
Maybe
know,
maybe they're
pe
in the mud.
somebody asked me the other day about getting a bigger pot. They had a pretty big pot, like a 3 foot rectangular pot, and it was a 12-inch high. And I almost think going higher is better than actually going and getting like a bigger pot if you're going to upgrade to a different pot.
Right.
So that's an
Sounds
interesting
like a
little
side by
data.
side theory we need to test.
Sounds like a we need to do a test and see what whether
Well,
the height or the size.
McKay makes a 12 and an 18 of every single one of their pots. So we could drop the same exact one side
Yeah.
by side and do a comparison
That would
there.
be really fun, actually,
Yeah.
to do that on the next opener.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've been
I-
using his big rectangular coffin pots, and
Yeah.
we did pretty well this year on the 3-day opener that we had. So
So I bought one of the coffin pots last year, and I have two of the Ladner 28s. I think those are the same ones that you have, Hayden. And my Ladners outfish them still.
still do.
funny.
Huh.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So when
Yeah.
Scott and I go fishing, we literally bring one coffin pot and we get a limit on one pull. If we
Really?
take two
Yeah.
pots, we dump the whole second pot. Maybe it's where you fish. There's so many different things,
Yeah.
right? That it could be. Where do you guys primarily fish? If you were going to say my go-to shrimping region, you don't have to give us your GPS unless you're super generous. But where are you guys fishing for guys that are thinking about getting into it up north?
So I'm an area west person. I always have been because we used to have those long seasons when I was a kid. We just take the boat out there and we'd go any day that the tide looked good when it was during the season. So I know that area pretty well. I haven't fished Jones. I've heard a lot of good things about Jones Island.
Mm.
I've never really made it out to Iceberg, but I grew up fishing Spiden. Spiden was one that I really liked a lot, and I'd set off the point on the cliff there, and I'll tell anybody that one. I mean, if you can set your pot there, you're going to catch a lot of shrimp every time. But it's impossible to set your shrimp pot there because it's such a steep angle. So half the time they'll land at a sideways angle, and then they drift off because the tide rips out there. So you don't really get the best sets there. So I kind of started just fishing the carpet bomb. I just call it the carpet bomb. There's out there in between Waldron and Stewart. It's just a couple hundred boats out there fishing the mud flats. And, I think you could set your pot out there anywhere and catch fish or shrimp, I guess. So it's consistent pulls. You're not going to be pulling up 200, 300, maybe some spots if you keep shrimping it your whole life, but it's pretty simple out there. You go out there to anywhere from 215 feet to 330 and set your pot and go.
Yep, that's what I was going to say. Up by Waldron, if you look at the bottom contour, there's kind of this washboard thing that happens right off the sand flats, and it's only 6 feet difference, but it's just these kind of bumps, and that's what we would always kind of go for and hope that it goes on the little downhill slope. It lands on that, and you can tell the difference when it kind of gets on an uphill versus the downhill. It's quite a few different, a lot more in one versus the other. But off of Waldron is where we've always gone. I heard Iceberg is lights out too.
It's
It's been pretty good. Yeah. I got Eastern Bank right here on my shoulder.
Yeah.
There's places down here on Eastern Bank that we would go to, and friends went out there last year. We got multiple reports that it wasn't as good as it has been out there. They had trouble getting 4 limits out there this year. So they came back up to Iceberg and did pretty well. And I've gone just to Iceberg all year, or the 3 days all year. And it's been good. But what are you guys doing for bait? Are you doing anything special for bait? Or are you doing, I tell people, look, if you just take pellets and oil, you will go catch shrimp. We
Yeah.
doctors ours up a little bit, but you guys do anything special with your bait?
You want to go, Hayden?
Yeah, well, so with my bait, I have done all the special stuff. You go to the dollar store, you get the tuna, you get all that stuff. This year is the first year I was kind of just a little lazy with it. I wouldn't say lazy. It fished pretty well. And honestly, in the last couple of years, it fished better than the bait I have used. I just took the chopped mackerel, the raised bait chopped mackerel, and I put it in there and I smashed up some of those pellets that we sell, the super bait, and I soaked the juice in there, and then I put some full pellets in there, and I just scooped that in there when I was going into my shrimp pots. It's pretty simple. I left it on the beach for the 3 days of the opener, and it's fished every day. So, or I guess the 2 days. So it was good. It was a lot less work than putting a ton of things together and doing it. And
Yeah.
growing up, we never did anything special until shrimping got super popular. It was just the super bait. You just need the juice and the pellets, and you'll catch them. But I will say we did soak some of those oil rags. If you guys ever come down and you see the commercial oil rags, or I guess they're just for working on boats. Some of the commercial guys have been putting the super bait oil on those rags, and they absorb it, and it leaks out a lot slower, so it doesn't get all over your boat and it's in your scent the whole time. So
Hmm.
it's something I tried this year and it did pretty well.
That's an excellent tip. I
That's
love
a good
so
idea,
any of those commercial like hot tips, because obviously those guys don't want to overspend on things like bait, right? They want to be efficient with their product, but then those little tricks to make things work faster, bring them. That's great. I'll definitely try that one. How about you, Jake?
Yeah, for my bait, so the night before we go out, I generally will, I just get one of the gallon jugs of our super bait that we have, the pellets. I pour a whole quart of oil in there, and depending on how filled, usually I'll put a cup of water, maybe 2 cups of water in there with it. It soaks overnight, and then in the morning, everything's nice and soft, and I stir it. So you can, depending on how soft it is, you can use like a paint stir with a drill, but I really like kind of grind it down into like a mashed potato consistency. Some people will stick them straight in the freezer and stick them in their pots frozen like that. I use the Scotty bait jars, which have pretty small vents on them. I'll just, not even frozen, I'll stick a whole mackerel or herring, something solid in there, and just pack that jar full. And I'm kind of under the belief if I don't have my shrimp limit within an hour, I'm in the wrong spot. So if that bait, it's all bleeding out. I don't want any of that pellet paste remaining when I come back to it. I want it to be, the more that is bleeding out, the better. But I also want to, if I'm, decided to go lingcod fishing or catch kelp greenling, and I want it to soak for 2 hours. I know that there's that mackerel or that herring that I stuck in there. That's kind of like that slow release versus the fast release. Yeah, it's generally all I do, and it seems to work pretty well for us.
Awesome. So I got to know, Hayden, you said 17-foot boat. And that's a very common question that we get. Is my boat big enough to go fish out here? So what kind of pot puller are you using? What kind of recommendation would you give to people that are a little worried about their smaller boat? But you just said 120 miles on that thing? That's
Round
awesome.
trip.
So any advice?
Yeah, so that 17 whaler's done a lot of things. We've almost flipped it, we've almost sunk it, we've done a lot of things. Not to make anybody scared. It's just you're gonna have some of that on the water. But I mean, that thing has been from Bellingham all the way up to the South Arm of the Fraser. You look on some of the tracks, it's been some long distances. It's been to Barkley Sound a couple of times. So yes, is your boat big enough? Of course. If it's 15 foot, 17 foot, 20 foot, they're all big enough. If you go up to Canada, they're fishing out of aluminum boats that are 10 feet long. So you'll see them 10 miles offshore. So yes, it's big enough. And I think it all comes down to space management. So in our boat, we have taken out the seat and we put a cooler where the seat was. So we lost comfortability, but we gained more deck space. So now we have a lot more deck space. We can throw that cooler forward so that we can be back there fighting fish. We had 4 people on the back of it the other day. I mean, it's riding a little low, but it goes with the shrimp pots. I've done 4 people. We went in our buddy's 20 foot, and it was a little bit better. But I've done people out of there with the Ladner pots. You have to have stackables. I mean, stackables are key. You could throw your line in there. I use shots of line in big tubs. You can crank them on and get those crank-ons, but then if I have my stackables, I just throw it in the middle there and lash it up there on top. Then you just have your buoys and you're set. Your boat's big enough, however big it is, for however many people and the gear you're taking. You just have to be managed with space and gear and people.
What kind of pot puller do you use?
Brutus all day. My grandpa, we actually won one in like the 2009 Salmon Derby out here,
Cool.
7th place or something like that. And so we got a Brutus, and that's how we got started with it. And we just bought a new one a couple years ago, and it's great. I love my Brutus. They have the automatic line coiler for what I use it for. It's great. If you had a bigger boat, you can go to Discovery Bay. They're a little bit beefier, a little taller. They're going to do a lot more weight. But the Brutus for me and my little 17, if I had one of those, I think I might flip it. So I'd rather trip the breaker before I flip my boat. So
Yeah. Jake, how about you? What are you fishing out of, and what's your gear management strategy and pot puller situation?
Yeah, so I actually don't have an ocean boat down here. I'm lucky to have friends like Hayden that I go, but up north we have a couple different boats. I work at the lodge up there that we have 3 different halibut boats, and the one that we generally go out on is Duckworth, and it's a 6-person boat, and they have a Discovery Bay on there, and I absolutely love the Discovery Bay. They did get the one with the spool system on it, which can be kind of nice. You get the 10X line from Samson, and it's a 1/4 inch line with 1,300 pound tensile strength, and you could fit up to 600 feet on each of those spools. So, yeah, it's really nice. You can kind of have different spools for what you're doing, and you could have 200-foot shots on each spool with ceilings connected to it. So if you needed to add you wanted to try shrimping at 600 feet or something, you could throw another shot on there and just throw the spool out. But yeah, we're fishing out of a 28-foot boat most of the time up there, and it's just a straight fishing boat. There's 3 seats on the inside of it, and it's 2 Scotties in the Discovery Bay and a 250 on the back. So
Nice.
yeah.
Okay. Any more shrimp questions, shrimp thoughts? How much
Shrimp and
weight you
bite.
putting in? Actually, how about weighting? How much weight you running in your new Octagon pots there, Hayden?
Yeah, so I am kind of cheap with it. I just scrounged up some old cannonballs and I threw
Yeah.
in a 12er down the center, and then I wired in a 10-pounder on just the outside of the bait jar. And so it's got about 22. I mean, the whole thing's maybe 23 pounds, 24 pounds, somewhere in there. As of the last tides for this last shrimping openers that we had, it was plenty of weight where I was shrimping. In the heavier currents, I think it might drift a little bit, but we'll see as that comes along. I mean, even my Ladners that are, I think, 28 pounds, because I got the 35s and they're 28 pounds and they will drift. I've drifted them 3 miles before I found them before, but it's just all in the learning curve of just putting enough weight or how you anchor them and what buoys you're using. We're getting a lot of people coming in the shop and asking if like an A1 or an A0 is big enough, or an LD1, which for people that don't know, it's the size of your buoy. So you'll go out there when you're shrimping, you'll see these bigger buoys that are all pretty uniform. Those are for the most part LD2s. So they're like the pill bottle shaped ones. I'd recommend nothing less than that. You can still sink those in a really a really heavy tide. So go big, go home. You're spending up to $300 to get that shrimp pot in line. Why would you cheap out to get the,
Yeah.
$50 versus
Yeah.
$70 float, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Why would you want to lose your stuff? It's a little bit, it's cheap on the front end, way more expensive on the back end when you lose it.
Yeah. Yeah, I generally tell people minimum of 30 pounds just to be safe. I'll even add a 5-pound weight into one of those Ladners. But yeah, the LD2s and the A2s are as small as you really want to go with those, especially if you're just running that without any additional cork or anything on there. It's super important. And you can overinflate those things pretty incredibly. You really blow them up.
And
Awesome.
finally, the last thing on shrimp, and then we'll move on. What about the tides? What tides are you? Are you setting in current, or are you waiting for the absolute slack?
So this last opener, we had really good tides almost all day. I generally, when the tides are really good, I'll wait till it gets under 1 mile an hour or 1 knot, somewhere in there. I like that slower moving current. I'll go do my Lingcod before if the tide's moving, because Lingcod like a little bit of tide, and then I'll go over and do my shrimping after that's all said and done. Yeah, I look for like more of the slack water, as slack as it can get, because if you get it on the back end of slack and you start setting your pots there, then you start running the risk of that current picks up really quickly, and then all of a sudden you have 4 pots out and they're starting to get sucked under, and it takes, up to 10 minutes to get that pot in and all set and done to the next pot. So that 40 minutes can be, do or die for getting all your prawn pots back.
Which is not a fun place to be. No.
And so one thing that you can kind of do too is you can do a couple of those corks, like the FIT 506s, just the yellow standard, kind of like your crab corks. And you can put that on like a floating section of like a 10-foot section of line with the cork on one end and your LDs, about 5 feet away. So if you start seeing those going under,
Yeah.
you're about to lose your LD. Or if you look over and you don't see your corks, it's kind of an early warning sign, but like you're about to lose all your stuff.
Yeah.
Any advice for people that are thinking about doing it for the very first time? And then we'll table shrimping and move on.
Take notes.
Take notes.
Take notes. Learn from your failures.
Yeah.
And there will be failures.
There will
It
be.
happens to all of us.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
For your first time, most likely you're going to be getting into it because a friend took you out. Take notes from them. Ask them where they're going, even shadow their boat for that day. If you just want to go out for fun, just find a flat spot where there's pots set. And if you don't want to snag your pot, that's probably the best place to go. Find some mud and just go find some boats. Go out there and start shrimping. Be careful. Don't set any other people's stuff. They don't like that. But yeah, just go out and have fun, take notes, and catch some shrimp.
Awesome.
They're
Love
also quite delicious raw.
Yeah.
Thank you for saying that.
Yes.
So do you eat them? Tell me your raw situation, like straight up on the boat.
I'll get an empty Scotty jar, and that'll be my little snack, my boat snack. And I bring some wasabi, some ginger, and soy sauce, and I just straight sashimi style. And I can't stop myself. They're so good. Some people kind of cringe. They're like, "What are you doing?"
Oh, it's delicious.
I've done it many times. I've never gotten sick, so I'm not too worried about it. And I'm kind of craving them right now, actually. So
We like making ceviche out of them. But yeah, that's another great question. What's your favorite shrimp recipe? Is yours raw?
Yeah.
I think
ceviche.
raw. Yeah, ceviche is really good. I mean, ceviche is hard to beat. Black rock bass ceviche, I think, is my favorite though.
Ooh, I haven't tried that.
It's amazing, chewy in all the best ways.
How about you, Hayden? Favorite recipe?
I like to get them home that day after they've been on ice and just turn on the barbecue. Super high. Amazon sells these like little shrimp grates, or they're like little grates. You can put them all on there. You can put about 20 on there. Put them on 2 minutes on one side, 2 minutes on the other. Take them off, and you're eating. A little cocktail sauce if you like cocktail sauce. I just like throwing some Johnny's on there, and it's super good, super fresh.
Heads or no heads?
No heads.
Yeah,
no heads. Some people do like the heads. I do find though, if you're able to get them plucked and everything and on ice as fast as you catch them, that is key to keeping that meat from getting mushy. So I've always done no heads, but some people do like having the heads.
Excellent. Great advice. Have you guys been doing any lingcod fishing?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, we have.
Why, yes, we have.
Lingcod fishing in our area has been super good. Mr. Hayden just went on a 6-day fishing bender and took off work and then went chasing lingcod. But they're catching them everywhere. I went out last Sunday, got one in 10 feet of water, and then got one at 110 feet of water. And I was using the same lures. I was using Point Wilson darts and diamond flutter jigs, that style. Yeah, we did really, really well. Ran into a halibut in 60 feet of water.
Oh, fun.
Yeah,
nice.
Yeah. And he came over and sat on my jig. So that was a nice little surprise. But yeah, it's been great. The weather's been great. The beginning of the season, we had some pretty, I mean, like everybody, like big tides, not the best tides for lingcod fishing, but as time has gone on, we've gotten more and more opportunities. It's been really great. So, but yeah, Hayden, tell them about some of your adventures this past week.
Well, it's a marathon, not a sprint, as I will say. Everybody rushed out the first week and they were coming in here buying more jigs and everything to go. So I took that next week off. I went out for 4 days there and basically been going on my off days whenever I have them. And then, like Jake said, I took the last 6 days off to go, and it's been good. Craziest story from this last week is I had my live bait sitting over the side of the boat, and I was motoring up to go to the top of the drift, and about 20 feet of water, I had a lingcod come up and grab it at 4.4 miles an hour. He came up, grabbed it off the surface.
No way.
Ended up catching it, and it was like 39 inches. It was too big, and I had to toss it back. It was pretty cool.
Oh my gosh.
It was by far the most interesting thing for lingcod. I mean, you could probably go out there on that pinnacle and catch them with poppers. If they're going to come up and eat that, I found that pretty cool.
It's awesome.
That's awesome. You talk about an opportunist.
Yeah, exactly. It was pretty crazy. Yeah. But no, it's been really good for me. My season started off a little slow, which is weird. Usually you go out and it's bang, bang, bang. You're catching lings right away. It wasn't that we weren't catching our limits or anything. It was just a little slower than usual. I mean, I count slower as in a couple hours versus an hour or something like that, right? It was a lot of overslots. And that's kind of what we run into up here a lot. At least personally, I do. A lot of big overslots. And like a lot of them, you get them up to the boat, you don't even want to net them because you look at them, they're too big. So they're cool for pictures, whatever, but it's just, you just keep them in the water and pull the bait out of their mouth and let them go on their way. But it's been good. Yesterday was my first day without limits in 6 days. So we lost all of our bait pretty quickly. We got 2 out of the 3, but it was good.
So tell us about your bait program. How do you fish bait? What are you doing? Where are you finding your bait?
Okay, so Lingcod, they like live bait. I've fished a dead live bait before, and it doesn't work. It's pretty night and day difference, even if you have that same bait and he's just barely kicking versus he's dead. It's pretty crazy the difference you'll see. I'm up here in Area 7 North, we use Greenling. I know down south a lot of people like sand dabs because there is no Greenling down there. They're really hard to find. And Greenling, I'm not going to give up any of my spots, but you can find them everywhere. If you take a 2-ounce start and you go anywhere in the San Juans, anywhere from 40 to 30 feet, you're going to find them. You kind of look for where bait conjugates and you find all those little nooks and crannies and you'll start finding them. Like, yeah, yesterday we went to one of our good spots and they weren't there that day. But my brother went there a week ago. He caught 9 in 25 minutes. We caught 3 in an hour. So it was just, some days are better than others. It's just fishing, even if you know they're there. So
How do you rig them? What's your rigging program?
So I've been running a circle hook through the top of the snout and then a circle hook through his dorsal on the top. I need to buy some bait buttons because we did lose one because of barbless hooks. So if you have some bait buttons, throw one on the top of the snout so that it doesn't come undone. But yeah, that's kind of how I've been running mine for a while now. So it works pretty good. I'm going to say most of them, they hook. They don't even get the hooks. So you got to know that in advance. And you can't just crank them up. It's a nice, gentle crank to the surface. And when you get them up there, you net them. And then you can even pull that bait out of its mouth as soon as it gets in the net and throw it back over the side and throw it back down and catch another ling on it. It's pretty cool.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
How about you, Jake?
I like to, Greenling work super great. I like to find sand dabs. The whole Pellets Bay, Waldron area, there's a ton of them, and 10 to 40 feet of water. I use little sabiki rigs. So it's just one hook with a bunch of little tiny hooks coming off it. And I tip them with squid. And sometimes you're pulling 3 or 4 of them up at a time. Just find the bottom and do half a crank and get the slack out of the line. I hook them pretty much the same. I just use a Gamakatsu octopus hook, like a 4 or 5/0, and I stick it through the bottom jaw, right at the top of their nose. And then I'll either have a tag end coming off that hook with a treble hook tied to the end, or I'll just tie straight off of the shank of the hook to the treble hook using 30 or 40 pound mono. And then I put that treble hook, I put one of it just right in the back of that sand dab. And I'd say probably 60-70% of the time, that treble hook is what hooks the lingcod. And those sand dabs, the perfect size ones, they're just, little 6-inch ones they just tear straight through them. They're kind of one and done a lot of the time. There's really no reusing those a lot because they just get beat up. They're like butter. So, yeah.
And then where are you finding your sand dabs generally?
Off of Waldron. Yeah. Disney Point. Yeah. Pellets Bay. Yeah. Yeah. A lot of the time, if you're in the spot where you're going to catch a lingcod, that bait doesn't make it down to the bottom. A lot of time we're fishing longer 4-hour bait than we are for lingcod.
Yeah.
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 Awesome. So, you guys hear a lot of people talk when they come into the store. What kind of chatter are you hearing about this year's season when it comes to halibut, lingcod, or shrimping? Are people doing well out there? Does it seem slower? Would love to know your take on the pulse of this year.
Yeah. So just general word. I think general halibut, there's been an uptick for sure. I've been hearing a lot more people getting them on the inside. I sent a guy out of the shop. He didn't know what he was doing about 2 weeks ago. Never caught a halibut before in his life. Had a very small boat. And I said, well, if you go out of Birch Bay, you can get to Alden Bank in no time. And I was like, that would probably be your best. he had a 16-foot little John boat, and it'd probably be your best bet to try to get a halibut. And he calls me while he's out there, and he goes, Jake, well, I've caught 3 of them so far. Keep putting them back. They're pretty small. And I'm like, what do you mean you're putting them back? How small are they? He's like, oh, they're like 15, 20 pounds. I'm like, dude.
This is not Alaska.
yeah, keep them. So, I mean, that was kind of neat to have somebody come into the shop. Where can I go with what I got? And then he calls me. And yeah, he killed a 20-pounder and brought it home to his family and showed me pictures, and he was super stoked. And then on the other side of Orcas, I've been hearing a lot of people getting into halibut over there. The shrimping is kind of standard from what I'm hearing across the board. Most people are learning, and we only get 3 opportunities a year, so it might take you 12 years to finally figure it out. But shrimping's been good. Lingcod's been great from it's good job security here. Lingcod fishing, for every one fish they catch, they lose 3 lures. So lingcod fishing's been great because we've been selling jigs like crazy. So yeah. Would you say about the same, Hayden?
Yeah, I'd say about the same. I mean, I'll always tell everybody if they come and ask for the report, it's lingcod fishing's always good. They're always there. You can go to the same place every year. If they were there last year, they're there this year. I mean, it's just about what you're throwing at them, and how much has somebody else gone in there and thrown the same thing at them. So there's a lot of boats out there this year. I've seen less than normal for some reason. Not saying that there aren't any boats out there, but at least to some spots, I've seen less, and some spots I've seen more. So yeah, it's been pretty good. I mean, on my end, it's been really good. So they're definitely out there.
We got a report about the quota, the halibut quota, or 80-ish thousand pounds, I think. We were up to 33%, I think.
Okay.
So that will probably mean we're going to get the later months, August and September. So that'll be good.
Yeah.
For us later.
Great.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
But yeah, we're kind of hearing the same thing down here. It actually was slow for a little bit, and then I felt like the last week, halibut fishing actually picked up a little bit in the last 2 weeks. I think I feel like they're either coming back or something's happening.
Yeah, they're moving in or out.
Yeah.
Do you know what depth they're generally catching them at?
I have found that deeper has been better this year. So anything over 150, I'm telling people, and that's what I'm doing. I mean, if I go out, I'm probably fishing 190, 186 actually, if you want if you want to get technical. On my spot has been pretty good. And then I know some guys that fish 200, 220 out by Coyote Bank and out by the border on this side of the border. So that's kind of what we're seeing in here, and I think Lingcod about the same. Jamie got her on a Lingcod this weekend.
No, I don't get to fish as much because he's always chartering. So I got to go play. It was great.
Nice.
Up north, we fish Susha a little bit. I don't fish Susha that much because I have to pass a lot of places to get up there to do it.
Right.
So we stayed up north, had a boat slide off its anchor and end up on the rocks at Barnes and Clark. Saturday, was that Saturday night? Friday night.
Yep.
Friday night. So that was exciting. But yeah,
we woke up
it
and
was
thought
fun.
they left early, and I looked down the beach and I was like, oh no, they're on the rocks. Waiting for tide to come back in, because it was kind of a bummer for those guys. They were camping on the beach and had no idea that their boat just took off.
Was the boat dry?
Oh yeah, it was. Yeah, the water had come down like 4 feet.
Yep.
And they had about a 10-hour wait for the tide to come back up. So it was I'm sure it was a long, slow day for them watching the water. What are you guys using for your Lingcod gear? Are you using light tackle?
I like to go as light as I possibly can, and that's kind of across the board through all fishing for me. I was running 2 and 3 ounce flutter jigs most of the day, and I had the kind of inexperienced people running 6-ounce jigs most of the time. I found those tides were a little bit bigger 2 weeks ago too, so the 8 to 10 ounce jig heads were good. A lot of guys, we sold over 300 12-ounce jig heads this month.
Wow.
I find it a little overkill, especially for those big tides. And if you're trying to get down to 100 feet, it's nice, but I don't think you need 12 ounces for 100 feet most of the time.
Yeah.
Cool.
For me, rod wise, I'm running the new West Coast fishing tackle. They're 6'6" jigging rod,
Yeah.
and then the ugly stick, the what is it, the Taiga or whatever that
Tiger.
is,
Tiger,
the Tiger, yeah, whatever that one is, and it's a 7 foot, and I love that rod. I mean, it
Yeah.
fishes. It's a good play for the Lingcod for what it is. It's $70, I think, is what it retails here, and it'll get you out there. I mean, I have an Avid on it, which makes it a lot cooler. So that's pretty cool. That was my first setup, and then I just got the West Coast rod this year. And I will say, having more rods, running more bait has turned into some fun days. I mean, we used to just fish one rod. We started with mooching rods with just the 1-to-1 action reels, and it worked up north for us. But down here, where you really find some big lings, they just don't have the backbone. But some of the newer, like the spinning reels and some of these guys, they will have the backbone. So I just upgraded a few years ago to the meat sticks, I call them, and they're for the grocery store.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you guys carrying the West Coast rods at LFS?
Yep.
Yeah. We just got a
Cool.
shipment in today.
Yep.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, we got a whole spread of their flashers. We have 98% of their spoons. Really love their stuff. We're getting a lot of positive reviews. We just sold 30 of their flashers to a woman this morning, and people love them. There's going to be some stuff coming up with the tariffs to be determined, but yeah, we don't plan on not having their stuff in the store. It's pretty
So
great.
get in there before the stuff happens with the tariffs.
Yeah,
buy
it's
buy
coming.
your gear.
Yeah, I mean, that's across the board.
Let's talk a little bit about salmon. How many years did you guide?
5 years on the Kenai Peninsula.
Okay.
Yep.
So from a salmon perspective, it's going to be here before we know it. So you might as well start buying your tackle now. Anything that you guys can pull from your commercial or guiding experience that you think is, I don't know, unique, different, maybe something that people can plug into their tackle program this year? Or if you just have some favorite stuff, old and trustees.
Yeah, I mean, this past year, the silver fishing in all of the Puget Sound and in our local rivers was off the charts. And, coho aren't super complicated things to crack. It's just having the gear. I'm mainly a river fisherman, especially up north when I'm working in Alaska. Our days off, we call it fun fishing instead of work fishing. And we go take the salt boat out, we take the fun boat out, and we go fish for them. But it's really just trying new stuff. You'll find things that work, and they work one year, they work another year, and then all of a sudden the fishing's not so good, and the bait has changed, or trying new things and not getting stuck in your ways. I do it all the time. I'm super guilty of it. I get stuck. I know that this number 5 2-aught chartreuse works. This is what I'm going to use, and then I see some guy that has a little hoochie attached to his spinner that's brown or something. I was like, huh, he's catching fish and I'm not. So just being open, having an open mind and trying new stuff and really trying to think like a fish. That's my number one advice for like any fisherman who's thinking. Like, you kind of got to get into the brain. Like, if I'm a halibut, I'm sitting on the bottom, what would I like to eat? Or if I'm a salmon and I need to stage up to go upriver, where am I going to be staging? Kind of thinking and like a fish does. That's pretty useful. And taking notes, learning from your mistakes. I don't want to do that again.
Mm-hmm.
So run 20 feet higher. I'll stop losing downrigger balls every day. So, yeah. What
So
about
from
you?
a commercial aspect, one thing I was thinking about there, fishing rips. It's going to be a huge coho season, and even the kings. Up in Bristol, a lot of those fish, if you're just out there in the middle, you set your gill net on a rip, and like a tide line or a tide change, or where you're looking where all that, I hate just all the garbage is collecting, right? It sucks. You get it on your downrigger line, you catch it in your net, but fish move those. Bait collects there. We found a little rip off of Susha last year during one of the king openers, and 1, 2, 3, 4 boats went through there, and everybody was hooked up. It was pretty cool. And then nobody else around was hooking them, and just up and down the rip, we were finding bait, finding fish. That was pretty cool. But that's one thing I would say. And as you get closer to the river, you find that a lot of set nets will catch kings up there. Kings like to run cuts. So like if you're out there, you're fishing the 100-foot line and it goes up to 60 and it drops off to 150 or whatever, and you're at the 100 foot, that'd be a cut deep in the water. But even closer to the river, it'll be 5 feet and it drops off to 25 feet, and they'll run that cut itself. They like to run the beaches when they get close to the river. So looking at something like that. And one thing, this year is going to be a huge coho year all the way around the Puget Sound. Have your casting rods. There's going to be a lot of pinks around. There's going to be a lot of
Yes.
silvers around. Bring casting rods on the boat, because I will say we were out there this weekend and I've already caught my first coho of the season. There was some resident coho up in Area 7, which was pretty cool to see. I've never seen resident coho up here in May. So it was pretty cool. Just, catch and release right there at the boat. They were up there. It looked like they were trout sipping on dry flies. There was thousands of them.
That's awesome.
Went back the next couple days trying to find them. They weren't there. It's just a one-time thing, but we had a bait caster and we were prepared, and it was pretty cool to just see it all happen.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
I mean, there's
have casting rods.
salmon out there. On Sunday we were marking salmon suspend. We were in 200 feet of water and they were suspended at about 60, 70 feet. And we kept marking fish at 60 feet, 70 feet over and over again. And to me, that's salmon. So
And it's
out
pretty
there,
exciting.
it's a humpy year this year too. And this is supposed to be just a banger of a humpy year. So, you get the kids out there and throw some buzz bombs on, and that's a bunch of fun. Like you said, Hayden, having that casting rod, you'll see them running, and even at the mouth of like Bellingham Bay, you go out towards Post Point or Eliza, and you can see them running 20 feet off the beach there, and you go throw buzz bombs for them. It's quite a bit of fun.
It's a great way to get kids into fishing too, especially on that, they don't want to sit out there for hours and hours and hours. So if you can get them on a hot year like this, get them hooked on the sport, it just makes it a ton of fun.
Get them amped up. Yeah.
So as we wrap up, I would love to know, final question for you two. What is your favorite fishing story ever?
Oh gosh.
Wow.
It's a hard question.
Tough one. Favorite fishing story ever.
Ever? Wow. I got a lot from this week, but ever, that's a hard one to think about.
Half of them only include about that much fishing, and then it's the shit show after.
100%.
Yeah. So up north, I think this will be a good story. So a lot of the fishing that I do up there, I'm the fly out guide. So at the beginning of the year, we get permits to remote locations. We helicopter a boat out to those locations and drop it off. Most of the time it's a 16-foot John boat, and we put a 20 horsepower kicker on the back just to transport up and down the river. We have one spot that has a 20-foot jet sled that we have a 150 jet on the back that we helicopter over there. But on this instance, we were running, me and another guide, his name was Brant. We were running a trip at Big River Lakes. So we did a 6-hour trip, and then we determined we were going to go straight from Big River Lakes to a river called the Cuscatan. And the Cuscatan, this boat's so big that you can't put it on the bottom of the plane. So you have to drive it across the Cook Inlet, which is a 35-mile stretch of ocean where you can get 10-foot seas. It's the second fastest tidal swing in the entire world. So there'll be a 30-foot swing in a day. So if you fall overboard, you are getting, it's moving at 10 knots, easy. So we were done with our trip at Big River Lakes, got dropped off at the Cuscatan, then we were going to drive that jet boat back home because we were done for the season. So that was the last trip. So we get the boat out of Big River Lakes. The tide is going out super quick, and on either side, it's just mud and just the channel for the river. So you come out to where normally there's ocean, but for a mile, you're just going through this kind of mud flat. And we get halfway across the Cook Inlet, and there it goes from 200 feet deep to 20 feet deep to 400 feet deep on the other side. So that we call that the wall. And a lot of the time you can't get across the wall. and it spans, this is called the Turnagain Arm, and it spans all the way to Anchorage for about 100 miles going out of the Turnagain Arm. And we ran about 80 of those 100 miles trying to find a hole in the wall so we can get across it.
Mm.
And at this point, we have probably about 30 gallons of fuel on deck just to replenish it. And we're running out of fuel. And we're like, we have to go back. Like, so we're trying to find the river that we just came out of, but it goes ocean and the sun's starting to set. It's about 1 o'clock at night right now.
Mm.
And so the sun's setting, it's ocean, mud, grass, and then mountains. And you can't tell the difference. Just the way you're looking at it, you can't. So I ran aground probably about a dozen times thinking I'm in the right channel, but it's just shiny. So we're screwed. We're stuck between a rock and a hard place. We can't get back up river because the tide has gone out too much and we can't get across the wall. And so we remembered flying over that on one of these sloughs that there was a duck hunting cabin. On this side, there's nothing. It's no infrastructure or anything, just a couple of hunting cabins. And we finally found on our Garmin unit this little slough that we could finally found how to get back into. Got to the cabin. It's probably 3, starting to get kind of darkish at this point, and there's bears everywhere.
Oh.
And so we finally get up to this cabin, and it's padlocked. It's locked completely. So we broke into this cabin. So it had been raining. We're covered in salt water. We just ran it. We got our butts kicked for 8 hours in this John boat. And they're in this jet boat. And so we break into this cabin. We're soaking wet. We were ill prepared. We didn't bring great stuff. But there was 2 velour Adidas jumpsuits inside this cabin. There was a bottle of Pendleton and a box of Swisher Sweet cigars.
Oh my God.
So I was like, well, this is camp for the night. So we sat around. We slept for maybe an hour, but we were smoking Swisher Sweet cigars, drinking Pendleton, wearing baby blue velour jumpsuits. And we fell asleep and didn't set an alarm, but the sun just came back up. And I looked down and we're going to miss the tide again.
Oh my gosh.
And so we're like, we have to go now. And so we beeline it out of there. And it's about a 2.5 hour run just across the inlet because you're kind of getting pulled out with the tide. And yeah, we got back and I swear I was hallucinating woolly mammoths on the beach as we were coming in. It was a trip. But yeah, that was a good story. Kind of a interesting one where everybody at the lodge, they were watching The Perfect Storm while we were out there. And
oh my gosh.
once we got across the wall, all the text messages started coming in like, watching The Perfect Storm, thinking of you boys. Like, thanks. And we found out whose cabin that was. I finally figured it out. And he was just this old hunter. And I found his address and I brought him a bottle of Pendleton and a box of Swisher Sweets. And he's like, oh, okay. Thanks.
Hilarious.
Oh, and a new padlock. So
wow. That's quite the adventure.
yeah, yeah. So I've done that crossing now 7 times, and
Wow.
I will only ever do it one more time because your cat only has 9 lives. So
You're done after 8.
yeah, I'm done after 8. Never knew that again.
Wow. Hayden, how about you? How do you top that?
I don't know if I can top that. That's a good story. I've heard that one before. It's a pretty interesting story on how that happened, but I don't know. I've got a lot of good fishing stories. It's hard to dial it down to one, but I'd say my favorite moment, my favorite trip. I was my first every year going up to Rivers Inlet with my dad. He's been doing the trip since the late 80s, early 90s, and before there was all this, all the lodges and everything. There were some lodges, but not much. And went up there, and my first ever night, like I said, I was 12, and he made me reel in every fish. To start the story off, I had to reel in every fish. We caught 9 fish on one evening tide. Not one was under 25, and the biggest was 50. And then later that trip, we went back to the head of Rivers Inlet, and we caught one the night before. It was 45. Next day, we caught one, or we caught two. He caught a 60-pounder that trip. It was a pretty good trip. And then the last morning, we're about to head home. Like, we're gonna go start moving our way home down south, and he's waking me up. It's about 6 a.m. and we doubled up a 50 and a 45, and we released one of
Wow.
them. It was really cool, and I've been looking for that same exact bite ever since going back there. And so it was one of those special trips with your dad. It was just one of those moments. It was pretty cool. And then we went outside of Rivers Inlet Head, and we ended up catching a 50 and releasing that too. It was pretty cool. It was one of those trips where I haven't been able to catch that many fish over 40 pounds since. So
I mean,
that's one
that'll
that'll
really
forever. Yeah,
there.
I will forever remember that trip. I've only caught 150 since then, so it's pretty cool.
That's incredible. Did
That's
your dad get
awesome.
you into fishing? Is that where this interest came from originally?
Yeah, I was going out to the Nooksack River on his back in like a backpack when I was 6 months old. So it was just kind of those things. You're born into it, born into a fishing family. So it's pretty cool growing up.
How many generations did the interest of fishing go? Do you know?
Four, I want to say five, four for sure.
That's awesome.
So
We always
yeah,
say that fishing is a legacy sport. Like once
yeah,
one person's into it, they pass it on to their kids, and some of their best memories are going to be those magical moments with the people that you love the most, catching those fish. So
yeah.
that's awesome. I love it.
It
Thank
was
you guys
pretty.
so much for
Yeah.
hopping on and sharing your wisdom and knowledge and stories. And for those that want to find you guys, I mean, obviously they can go to LFS, but if they want to follow you online, because I know you teach seminars, you guys put out a ton of really awesome content. What's the best place for them to find you and follow you?
Yeah, on Instagram, I'm Jake Fish. I think there's only one of them. And then the LFS Facebook page. There you can find our seminars. You can find kind of upcoming events that we're going to be doing. Some of us guys like Hayden and Will, who just took off, they're going to be in and out of the shop going up to Alaska. But yeah, you just go on there or you just come on down to the shop here in Bellingham. And we always have somebody working the fishing department that knows what they're actually talking about, which is kind of rare these days. So
Yeah, that's awesome that you guys are actually in there and selling and talking to customers and giving them good info. Because yeah, you're right. It is rare to find people in the stores that actually know how to do it. So
I
thanks for
mean,
coming out
yeah.
and
I mean,
talking to
you
us.
go to one of those big box stores. I went to a big one. I won't mention a name. I asked them where their Lingcod stuff was, and their fishing department lead said Lingcod with a question mark. I was like, oh no.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Job security.
Yeah, yeah.
That's awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for coming out and sharing your knowledge, and go into LFS, ask questions. That's one of the best things you can do to learn is just go learn from the best directly. And these guys are there to help. And thank you so much for your time. And we look forward to seeing everybody here. Same time, same place, same channel next Tuesday on the Fishing for a Reason podcast. Thank you, everyone.
All
Have a
right.
wonderful
Tight
day.
lines.
Pleasure.
Bye,
See you
Tight
guys.
lines. See
Bye,
ya.
guys. Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you.